Dragan Jovanovic was one of his engineers, and Dragan used to be the manager of the CAD group, which used to be the drafters. And then, we started coming up with computer-aided design. And back then, you kids out there, we had mainframes that were computer-aided design, and you had to pen it hit the window. And he was the manager of that group, and he requested to give up the position to go back to be an engineer. And here I am, a young, hard-charging engineer going, wanting to climb the ladder. I go, why would you give up a management position? You could have done so much, made so much more money. And he goes, Brent, he goes, I fought in World War II. And he goes, I was captured and escaped from 2 Italian prisons of war. I was a prisoner of war. And I'm a Serbian and I have a knife and I, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you know what? When I put my head on the pillow at night, I go to sleep. I don't toss and turn. I don't wake up in the middle of the night. And that was one of those lessons, like I said, that people are going to tell you, and it stuck with me. This guy, it was more important for him to be fine. He found peace. He didn't want the management position where people were barking him on this side and upper management was barking on that side. He found peace, and his peace was in being an engineer, and that's what he needed to do. And he would go to sleep at night, and he was a content man.
I have this dialogue with several friends. We'll get together and just have this conversation of the ability to be satisfied and content versus the effects of drive and wanting to be better and do more, right?
Yeah.
And the balance between the two,
Yeah.
right? And some have a little bit easier of a time, being content, and some still can be satisfied in not being content, if that makes sense, like growing towards the next thing. So I'd love to hear that story. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
You mentioned you had a second one too.
Yeah, it was more of a metaphor as a sailor. My career as an engineer, in understanding what these different men have given me opportunities to do, and teachers, I should say people, because it was men and women that gave me a chance to become who I am today. The metaphor is more along, sailing. Is if you race a sailboat, I do out in an inland lake here, Reed's Lake here in town, and racing a very competitive fleet, many national champions. And I grew up racing sailboats with my family, and I was so frustrated, just angry. Like, I get off the lake, I didn't win. Why didn't I win? I had a horrible start. What am I doing wrong? And there's a guy at our club, and Eric. This is one for you, Eric. Shout out to Eric. And then he goes, Brent, he goes, when I'm sailing, he goes, this is what I do for pleasure. This is my hobby. He goes, if I'm not having fun, what am I doing out here? And it was a mic drop moment for me. Boing. Oh my God. Here I'm spending my weekends and my weeknights out here. This is supposed to be fun for me. And it's that balance of where, of course, I want to be a better sailor. Of course, I always want to win. But to the point where I hate sailing. I'm angry when I get off the water. I'm angry when I'm on the water. I go home and I fret. So it was, as a sailor, you can never predict where the winds are going to be. The winds shift all the time. They're going to change direction on you. And so the metaphor is, which applies to my engineering career through my whole life, is I had to change direction. How many people suffered through the automotive downturn? And then 3, 5, 10 years later, we have COVID. You don't know what life is going to throw at you. You have to learn to adapt. And you just got to figure it out, and then the second piece of that is, you're at the point right now, Stephen, where you've got kids and you got to take care of your kids. So my question is, am I in a moment of joy? Am I in a moment of peace where I can lay my head on the pillow like Dragan? Well, I can choose what I'm going to do and can't do, because my kids are all adult kids now, and they're launched and they're on their way. You have a more difficult problem right now. Your challenges are, I've got my kids, I've got a wife. I'm going to have to suffer through this a little more. I can't change course like Brent's going to be able to change course.
Yeah.
So, but that's the metaphor I use, and I like to try to share with my kids, is that the wind's going to change. Like I said, COVID, the automotive industry, just be prepared to adapt. Have those tools. Figure it out.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
sharing that. And just to camp on that a little bit, and sometimes we get so tied up in, hey, I need to have control, right? I have this plan
Yes.
and it's not aligning with my plan. I'm a project manager, right? The due date's the due date, the due date, and this is how things are supposed to happen in life. So,
Yeah.
some are planners a little bit more and they're like, "Oh, that didn't happen according to plan
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the winds blew a different direction than expected." And it can be difficult, right? To, change your mindset and switch and say, "Okay, now I'm going this direction. It's going to potentially be a better direction than what I
Yeah.
even expected or thought about." Wow, and you don't realize some of those things until you're in it or until later. It's tough when sometimes you're in those seasons of a door getting shut, having, getting kicked out of school or, losing a job or some of those other things. Those are periods of time when it's tough. And you just need to show up the next day
Yes.
and show up the next
Yes.
day and show
Yes.
up the next day, right? And then
Yeah.
you'll take a look back sometimes and be like, "Oh, there was a reason for all that."
I two quick things. You're so wise on this, but I didn't get kicked out of school. I earned it. I used to tell my students that don't thank me for an A because you earned the A, and don't thank me or don't blame me for the F. You earned that as well. And that's I took
Mm.
complete responsibility for that. But going back to your discussion, and this is going back to people who are engineers and business people, and you're going to have competitors in the company you're working with or for or outside. And that's the same thing in sailing. Your competitors, when you're racing in a sailboat, we're all trying to go for that same mark. It's called you sail to one mark and you turn around, you go on the pattern. But your competitors are going to cause you to have to adapt and change as well. And you'll be frustrated on the water, but like you said, it may be a situation that actually your competitor who was in a strategically better position that required you to adapt puts you in a better position, 10 minutes later down along the lake, along the course. So, again, you're wise. When you're driving as hard as you're driving and these problems are coming up, the big guy upstairs, he's my boss. There's a plan that we have no idea. So the best thing to do is, be present in the moment, figure out why it's happened if you can. There's root causes. Sometimes you're not going to figure it out, and sometimes you can't fix it, but, adapt and survive.
I love it. And I usually get to this point of the conversation and ask a question of, "Hey, what would if you went back and told yourself something from your childhood, now that you know what you know, what would you tell yourself?" And I feel like you've already, for the last 5 minutes, we've been talking about things that, are great value bombs, if you want to call them that you would give someone that's younger that has the opportunity to, think about it as they change their trajectory. But anything additional that you would add? Maybe
Yes, it's
something.
one word. This is, just amazing. The word is forgive. Forgive yourself because you're going to make mistakes. Forgive the person that wronged you because right now there's someone's telling a story about you that you are the evil person. You know, we all think that, we've been troubled in life and it's been unfair. We've all had that story in our head. But the reality is we were in that position. We made certain decisions, and I've made many mistakes, many that I haven't even shared here. But you've got to look at yourself and say, okay, I made that mistake for a variety of reasons, and then you got to look at the people outside you and forgive them as well. Maybe they are in a position where if they lose this job, they're going to lose their house. And so, they're driving so hard that you're no longer a person. Their career, they're charging so hard in their career. They're trying to be so successful, and you're just in their way. Does that make them evil? Should they treat you that way? No. But the bottom line is you don't know what people are going through. Um, it's you don't know their history. It doesn't give them permission to treat you poorly. But on the other hand, you have to learn how to deal with that. And again, adapt and survive. And I should say adapt and thrive. But the reality is, you'll get to a point, hopefully, where you forgive yourself and forgive other people. Just forgive.
Yeah, I love that word.
Yeah.
And again, something that's, important to remember and wise to hear. And some people need to hear that right now, right?
Yeah.
Because they're sitting on something that it's actually ruining more of their day, ruining more of their life, ruining more of the relationships than if they would have gone through that phase
Yeah.
of forgiveness. But it can be difficult, and it's something that again is hard. But with hard decisions and hard choices, maybe on the other end, again come greater opportunities and greater
Exactly.
relationships.
Good
And
summary.
yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you again so much for being on the Engineered Success podcast. I just have one additional question. It's
Uh-oh.
what we end every single podcast with. And so I really would love to hear, you've hinted at it already, but what is your definition of success?
It's I don't know. What a hard question. It's okay. Well, let me just say this. It's contextual. Going back to sailing, it depends on, am I out sailing and I'm out to do the best job I can? Um, do I need to win that race? No, I don't need to win the race. Am I having fun? So success in sailing for me now is doing better than the last time racing the sailboat, and enjoying myself. What's success today? Well, my kids are. If one of the questions you had that I heard was, you know, what would you say one of your greatest successes are? My family, my kids, my
Mm.
kids and my family. I'm still close friends with many of my brothers. I mean, we live across the street from each other. Said families, communities is success. Yeah, it's not the money. Is it a life balance? We talk. You hear that? You ever hear that now? Everyone's talking about what's your work life balance.
It's work life integration now.
Oh, is it work life integration?
Yeah.
What's your work life integration? I don't know. It's like, it's just it's you hear the other things people say, this correct me, I'm authentically myself.
Hmm.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but I don't know. I really don't know
Yeah.
define success. I guess um wait, okay, hold on. Here, this is what I think it is. Um you want to be 1% better than you were yesterday, that kind of theme. You want to make the world a better place than it was tomorrow. Um when I One of the things, this goes back to values my mom and dad taught me. Whenever you borrow something from somebody, you return it in a better condition than you got it. So that's, to me, I guess success. That's what life is like too. You want to leave the world a better place than when you arrived. Right? So can I make the world a better place? Is there more peace? Is there more joy? Are more people thriving? It just, yeah, that's what I think what it would be. Leave the world a better place when you arrived.
Well, and I think that just with you closing out with that statement, it mirrors what your actions are doing with what you're doing right now with your fractional CTO work, right? You said you want to leave the world a better place. And also you said you only want to work with businesses that have great missions that are working on leaving the world a better place and working on leaving people, in a better place than where they found themselves.
Yeah, this is like a therapy session. I mean, I have to pay you. It's like all this self-discovery right now,
Ouch, no. We'll end there before we get too deep.
I know, right?
No, thanks again for joining on the Engineered Success Podcast. It's been amazing having you on. I know I had a ton of takeaways, and then there's going to be a lot of value for others that they pull out of this as well. So thank you again, Brent, for being on.